When a survivor of childhood sexual abuse or complex trauma discloses their experience to a professional, the entire system is tested in a split second. Faced with that raw disclosure, most professionals feel an instinctive urge to fix the problem. The default response is to gather facts, search for a diagnosis, or quickly route the client to a specialized department. But rapid assessment questions and rushed handoffs often backfire. Instead of feeling supported, the survivor can feel interrogated and alienated, responses that often trigger the exact trauma reactions the system is designed to navigate. We can see the divergence in this comparison. On one side, the fix-it instinct relies on interrogation and pity. On the other, the trauma-informed reality focuses on listening, grounding, and active accompaniment. A professional acts as a safe, predictable anchor in a moment of extreme vulnerability, placing the survivor's immediate stability above the need for a clinical solution. This creates a tension between the need for organizational speed and the goal of survivor retention. Keeping a survivor from dropping out of the system relies on three specific pillars: regulating emotional tolerance, providing strength-based guidance, and executing active referrals. Before a productive conversation can happen, the survivor must be in a specific biological state. This graph tracks the window of tolerance, the baseline zone where a person is emotionally regulated and capable of processing information. Standard bureaucratic questioning can easily trigger distress. When the line spikes into this red band, the individual is in hyperarousal, a state of panic and overwhelm. Alternatively, the nervous system might shut down. If the line plummets into this blue band, the survivor is in hypoarousal, characterized by dissociation, numbness, and disconnection. If either reaction occurs, you must pause the intake process. Your priority shifts to sensory grounding, like asking the client to name things they see and hear, or helping them focus on the physical contact of their feet on the floor. These grounding techniques help the survivor's nervous system pull back from the extremes and return to a state where communication is possible. Prioritizing immediate physiological safety over the meeting's agenda is the only way to make the interaction viable. Once the nervous system is regulated, the focus shifts to the professional's mindset. The traditional diagnostician approach often treats the survivor as a broken victim to be managed, which subtly communicates the question, "What is wrong with you?" A trauma-informed practice flips that script. This quadrant chart maps the approach across two axes. The goal is to move from deficit-focused questions to the strength-focused question, "What happened to you?" In practice, this means validating behaviors like avoidance or dissociation. Instead of seeing these as problems to fix, you recognize them as survival tactics that were once effective, reframing the person's experience as one of resilience. As shown in the top right quadrant, this reframing turns the survivor into an active collaborator, restoring the sense of autonomy and control lost during the trauma. This requires the professional to step down from a comfortable, authoritative status to share decision-making power with the client. True recovery depends on this shift. The survivor must be treated as an active partner in their own care, rather than a passive recipient of services. The final point of failure is the referral. The standard, low-friction practice is to hand a distressed client a phone number and move on to the next task. This top path shows the consequence. The survivor is too overwhelmed to make the call. They drop out of the system and eventually return to the start in a state of acute crisis. The systemic correction to this cycle is the warm handoff, or orientation bienveillante. The bottom path illustrates a warm handoff. You sit with the survivor to make the introductory phone call together, or you physically accompany them to the new agency. This prevents the survivor from having to repeat their trauma story to multiple strangers, which drastically reduces their distress and administrative fatigue. This costs the professional an extra 15 to 30 minutes of upfront administrative time. However, spending those extra minutes is what breaks the cycle of systemic dropout and ensures the survivor actually engages with long-term care. Ultimately, trauma-informed care functions by building an environment of emotional safety and systemic predictability. You can follow this blueprint to evaluate your interactions. Check if you are prioritizing physiological safety over information, offering choices instead of giving orders, and performing warm handoffs. For incidental professionals like teachers or general practitioners, if you only have 10 minutes, do not dig for trauma details. simply listen, validate their strength, and use that time to perform a single warm handoff. For dedicated support workers, your priority is constant vigilance over the window of tolerance. Calibrate every bureaucratic step to ensure you aren't pushing the client into a state of hyper or hypoarousal. Building trust with a survivor requires proving that their psychological safety matters more than organizational speed.